Welcome to the Lenape Tribal Nations Native Power Hour, a public humanities broadcast. I'm Linda Little Bright Star Jackson, your host, and this is the native voice of Lenape Hokan and the Lenape Tribal Nation. I hope that you enjoy this episode. The Native Power Hour would like to introduce Dawn Manyfeathers. Dawn, thank you for coming to do the Native Power Hour for us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're so pleased to have you. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're going to teach us about today?
I'd like to talk about indigenous medicinal plants. When the colonizers came, when they first came to this country, they brought diseases and things that we did not understand, so we could not fight them. But prior to that, if there was a disease, our people knew what herbs and what things to do to administer a healing to them. We not only healed the problem at hand, we healed from the inside out, the spirit, because they all are together. So some of the plants that we use that are indigenous were, of course, common ones like willow, like the elderberry, things like that. But there were other plants that we use that maybe you don't know about, like corn silk. Corn silk was given to women to ease the pain of childbirth. And that analgesic that was given to our women was basically the first medicine given for childbirth that eased the pain. Another thing is Queen Anne's lace. It looks like a big, pretty flat flower with a little black speck in the center. It usually blooms from late spring through the summer. It's also known as a wild carrot. Now, the seeds from that plant, the equivalent of 2 teaspoons of that seed, our people used as a birth control method because it made the uterus so slimy that the eggs wouldn't stick and the pregnancy wouldn't happen. Another thing that we used to use, and we still do, I do today, is wild lettuce. Now, some of the plants that we come up on will tell you how to use them, wild lettuce being one of them. With wild lettuce, you come up on the plant. I'd like you to maybe look these plants up, get a really, really good picture of them, and learn them, for yourself. But it looks like a giant dandelion, the shaggy leaves and everything. There's 2 types. One has smooth under the leaves. The other one has prickles, but they're spines, but they're not harmful. They won't harm you by touching them. They're soft. Now, the one with the smooth under the leaves is good for smooth pain. You make a tea, and if you've got a muscle ache or whatever, that helps to take care of it. But the ones with the prickles, it's for sharp pain. Like you've hurt something or strained something, and you get that sharp pain. So that's used for that. And the plant will tell you by the sharpness or the smoothness which plant to use. And they grow everywhere here. It does have lettuce opiates in it, but they're not addictive. They are to help ease you into feeling better. Another plant that we use is echinacea or coneflower. A lot of people are like, I'm going to do a medicine garden. And they dig holes and they plant echinacea flowers. And the flowers bloom, and they're like, well, now I've got echinacea that I can use. Not true. It takes 5 years or more for that plant to grow enough root to be used as a medicine. And that helps with colds and builds up the immune system and whatever. But if you don't have 5 years, don't depend on growing your own. Because this way, you know that your garden will be pretty for 5 years, but you cannot use that medicine until then. Something else that we use is sassafras. Now on the East Coast, most of it has sassafras. And it was said that when Columbus was sailing by, the sailors smelled sassafras that wafted out to sea, the smell of it. And they followed that in, and that's one of the reasons why they discovered this land. But sassafras in itself, the roots we use as a tea. That tea is like antifreeze for us. If you drink it in the fall, it'll help thicken your blood so that you won't get cold as fast. If you drink it in the spring, it'll help thin your blood so that you won't get hot as fast. And it's a good refreshing drink. It was the first flavoring that was used to make root beer. The sassafras leaves were used, well, the twigs were used as toothbrushes. They were chewed upon. And it's very, very easy to find a sassafras tree even in the wintertime because it's called green twig. All the twigs on the plant stay green even in the winter. The clover plants that are out there have natural occurring hormones. So they're good for rebalancing the hormonal system. A tea is made from them. A tea is also made from most of the plants that we have, that I've spoken about, except for the sassafras. The sassafras would be a decoction, which means you boil it and steep it until it gets to like a really nice red, and then drink it. A tea is something that's really quick to make, but a decoction takes a little bit more. Some of the people that come to me and they look at me and they say, oh, I've got this wrong with me and this wrong with me. One thing you must realize is I or any other herbalist are not doctors. Doctors are really good tools at diagnosing problems. So you ask them, what did your doctor say? You do not tell them, well, you got to take this, that, or the other. You're prescribing. You can't do that because you're a doctor if you prescribe. You can suggest. You can say, I think this is good for this, that, or the other, but never, ever, ever tell someone, well, you've got to take 2 liters of this or this, that, or the other. A lot of the plants that we use today, like the willow, which gives us salicylic acid, which is aspirin, was used from the beginning by our people, and now they've commercialized it and they've even synthesized it. Black cherry bark, the wild cherries that we have here. Certain companies use that bark for flavoring for their cough syrups. Wild mullein, that's out in the fields. Mostly I see it around the railroad tracks where it's nice and hot. That's a biannual plant, which means 2 years. That has many uses. One, the leaf can be used for coughs. But with a mullein plant, it's good to take your mullein and your other herbs that you're going to use with it and make it, if you have a breathing problem, make it into a smoke. And smoke that because it goes directly to the lungs. Another way you can use mullein is it can be used as bandages because the leaves are so big, the hairs on the leaves will stop bleeding. Another way to use mullein is the stalk itself can be dipped in wax without a wick and made into candles. Mullein can be used in many, many ways, and that's one of the gifts that we were given. The sumac that's in the fields in the fall, it's got red clusters on it. Those clusters are taken off before the rains come, the fall rains come, and wash the flavor away because it's on the outside. Those are used for acidic problems. So if you want something to settle your stomach and you need something lemony, that is what you would use, is sassafras. Sumac. The sumac also was used for pipe stems. Sumac is a plant that it's hollow inside, so blowguns were used with, blowguns were used, made from the plant. No matter what you put into your body, be it indigenous or be it grown in a field or whatever, it alters your body in some way. Even the food you eat alters your body. So, to find the right combination of what may help an ailment sometimes takes trial and error, but most times takes an understanding of the indigenous herbs and plants that are around you. One of the things that comes to mind is some plants will tell you what what they're good for, like the sourdock. Sourdock grows near poison ivy. That's an antidote for poison ivy. There are flowers. They look like little yellow flowers on a little string. They grow in a swampy area near poison ivy, and those are also used for an antidote to poison ivy. So wherever you find an irritant, if you look around you, you will find something to take that irritant away. There is a cup of tea. You may sit down and relax and drink a cup of tea. But, like I said, you're altering your body with that cup of tea. So choose your teas wisely, choose your drinks wisely, because you are, in a sense, medicating yourself. Salves and the like were made from the fat of animals. Bear was the most prized fat. So a salve made with say mullein and a few other herbs to take care of an irritant would be something to carry around with you for, burns or things like that. So salves are to be taken care of on the outside, your teas on the inside. There are eye washes. There's a little white plant that grows in wooded areas called Indian pipe or ice plant, because when you touch it, it sort of melts away. And that's usually around September or so here that it grows to maturity. That's good for an eye wash. It's really, really good, and it's recommended by a lot of people for eye washes for pink eye or other ailments like that. irritants, allergies, things like that. Okay. I've been skipping around here and there, different plants. So I'm going to take you for a walk. We're going to go for a walk first into a field. When you walk into that field, you will see plants everywhere, flourishing. And people usually look at them and say, wow, there's weeds. But there's more to it than that. What your weed is may be my medicine. So I look around and I see clover. Clover's there. Not only is it edible, it's got the hormones I told you about that are good for making people feel better at certain times, mostly at certain times of the month. We're going to walk a little further and we may see bee balm. Bee balm in some places is called Oswego tea. If you look at the stem of a bee balm or mint or other plants in that family, all their stems are square. So if they've got a square stem, then that will tell you it's in the mint family and generally safe. We use the leaves from the bee balm to make a cleansing tea, more like a tonic. It's drank hot or cold, with honey or without. But it has a refreshing flavor, especially in the summertime when it's really in bloom and growing. The flowers can be used, but usually it's the leaves. So we're going to go a little bit further and we're going to find some wild mint. Wild mint is good for intestinal problems, for stomach problems, for calming you, for keeping the coolness on a hot day. So mint is added to water to make a tea or to make an infusion, which means to take out the goodies from the plant and you drink them. We're going to go a little bit further and we're going to go maybe into a wooded area, which is an abundance of different plants that can be used both on the ground and above. One of the plants there that you're going to see in maybe a semi-swampy area is called spiceberry. Spiceberry has a lot of different uses. One of the uses of spiceberry is an antiseptic for the teeth. It's chewed and it's used for cleansing your mouth, especially if there's a problem in there. And our people use that twig if there was a problem in the mouth. The leaves make a black colored tea. That tea is also antiseptic. Can be used for like what you would call mouthwash today. And if there's sores in the mouth, that help takes care of that. The berries themselves are used for seasoning. And they're ground and they're used as a substitute for allspice. So we're going to go a little bit further and we will see our friend the willow. The willow is not only used for salicylic acid, it's used for, the leaves are used for different things that we would craft to use as medicine objects. Like say the first dream catchers, I'm told, are from willow boughs. Go a little bit further and you'll see our friend the sassafras. Now, it was told to me that the sassafras has carcinogens in the leaves and the roots and this. I'm not dead yet. I have been brought up on sassafras tea, and in the spring I gather leaves to make filet, which is a food additive. Sometimes our meats are covered with sassafras leaves to impart the flavor from the sassafras into the meat. We didn't eat bland food. We always had some kind of seasoning for it. So we'll talk about the food in another video. We're going to go a little bit further, and we're going to talk about the nuts that we find there. Beech nut, hickory nut, some walnuts. Black walnuts are used for different things. They're used for the hulls. Of course, you probably heard it'll dye you and whatever. But if you have a skin irritant like a ringworm, and you cover that with a strong color of the hulls from the black walnut, it will shade out that ringworm and help heal it. Also, the black walnuts fight fungus. If you look at a black walnut tree, you'll see nothing that grows underneath of it, because there is no beneficial or harmful fungus on the ground. So therefore, some of the plants cannot grow. So they sort of, shade that out. The walnut itself, the meat of any nut, has a lot of protein and staying power for all of us. So vitamins, minerals, things that we need, we rely on nuts for. We're going to go further into the woods and look at mushrooms. And I will tell you right now, I am not a wild mushroom person. So if you need information on the mushrooms, look it up. I do not want to be responsible for someone going around getting an LBM, little brown mushroom, and eating it and something disastrous happens. So leave the mushrooms alone. Go to a grocery store. The trees sometimes have bumps on them called galls. And in those galls are insects. And that's what causes the bumps, especially round balls that drop from an acorn tree. Now, acorns and oaks are very acidic. It has a lot of tannins in it. And that's where tanning hides came from, because of the tannins in the plant. The tannins also can be very harmful if taken as a drink in, I don't know who would do it, but drinking juice from a tree where you made tea and the tannins, that's how you extract them. If you've had a cup of strong black tea, you'll know what I'm talking about. Sometimes it'll make your mouth really, really pucker, or you'll get heartburn or whatever from the tannins there. Not a good thing. We're going to go a little bit further and come out of the woods and go near the water. Wild horse mint grows near some banks, and that's good. That's really good for you. Some of the plants along the water's edge, the mosses and things like that, mosses are used for stopping bleeding. They are also used as bandages. And while we're talking about bandages, we'll talk about yarrow. Yarrow is a frilly-leaved plant that has the top that has a bunch of little flowers put together. Look it up. Yarrow was used during the war as bandages when they ran out of bandages. It has properties where it heals a wound from the inside out. If you get something that's going to heal a wound from the outside, you're trapping sometimes bacteria and harmful things in that wound, but the top's closed up so it can't heal it. If you get something that's going to heal from the bottom out, less scarring and a cleaner wound so that it'll heal faster. Now, we have adopted a lot of plants that came here through the use of, well, one of the plants is dandelion. And dandelion is a diuretic, talking medicine-wise. And so that means it takes water out of your system, flushes your system. Another one is called plantain. Now, there's two types of plantain that was brought here as food sources. One is a blade plantain, and when we were kids, the top of it was a little brown arrowhead-looking thing, and we used to wind them up and shoot them. The other one is a flat leaf plantain, which has round leaves and it's laying on the ground. Now, we used to call them the footprints of the white man because the seeds were spread so easily. No matter where these people walked, the plants would come up. But it's also a field medic. If you get stung by a bee, you crunch up a piece of the plantain, put it on there, and it'll take the sting away right away. If you have a burn, cut, or bump, you take your plantain, put it on there, and, crunch it up a little bit so you get some of that sap. Put it on there, and it helps to heal from the inside out. And it's really good for making salves. The blade plantains have the same properties, but one special thing. That little part that we used to shoot is called pure psyllium. And Medicinal grows that plant today to use the psyllium. And that's what you're taking if you take Medicinal laxatives, is the psyllium from that plant. The plantain is edible the way it is. Some people use it to rub on their skin to keep the mosquitoes away. Some people ingest it to keep the mosquitoes away. So it's pretty versatile, so we adopted that. We adopted a lot of different plants because when the diseases came, we had to try anything we could try. Smallpox blankets and all. We had to try anything to try to get a cure for these things or relief for our people. Some of us survived. Hello. But that's only because the cure was found in time. In order to be in a land where you don't know anything and you don't know how to cure anything or to eat anything, it's pretty hard. We helped the colonizers survive. We learned some things from them about the plants they brought, and we taught them about the plants we have. We have saved many of their lives because of it works both ways. Some of the diseases they brought here, we did not know about. And some of the diseases they met here, they did not know about. We helped them. And in turn, some of them helped us. Anywhere. You're going to have some that do and some that don't. Well, some did and some didn't. The the medicines like chicory, which is growing around here, and it's blooming this time of the year. It's fall, but it's still blooming. That is a diuretic. There's a lot of things that will remove certain toxins from your system, and you need a diuretic for that, which means you let it go. All right, so we did a little walk there. To make a medicine garden, try to get the most indigenous plants you can find, because they'll be the hardiest. This is their land. This is where they came from. So try to use those plants that the Creator has given you to make medicine for yourself. A lot of my people have diseases like diabetes and high blood pressure and whatever. It's my feeling that these diseases are there because inherently, through history, we were not adapted to using the foods and medicines that they brought here. And our bodies readily accept what was here and how we use it. A lot of times when we're talking about medicines, we see commercials on TV and buzzwords for this and buzzwords for that and buzzwords for the other. That's how you know the plant, just by the buzzword. But to go out and gather that plant, you would never know what it looks like. Now, I have brought with me today something that everybody thinks, and they make gummies, they make all kinds of products, syrups, and you name it. These are elderberries. I gathered these from my yard and dried them. Now, when you do something like this, you only use a pinch in some tea or that you're already drinking or something. And that will give you the benefits that, say, this gummy or the drink or whatever, elderberry, whatever it is, will give you. They're good for building up your immune system. They are buzzword antioxidant. Elderberries taste good. You can make jam out of them if you want, but you never, ever, ever eat the leaves or the green berries. They are very toxic. So you wait until the berries turn black. You can eat the flowers when they come out in the spring. They're little white flowers. But for medicine, you would use the black berries, if the birds hadn't eaten them already. You gather them, you dry them, and they will keep for a couple years without losing the potency, because they have a sap inside, or a juice, let's put juice inside, that when you put it in water, you can see it automatically turn purple, and you know it's there. That's just one of the medicines that we had to keep us healthy. People talk about pemmican. You mash up berries and fat and so on and so forth to make a sustainable and full of energy bar that you can take with you, and it won't go bad, but you can eat it when you need energy. You only need a little bit. Some of the berries that was used, elderberries, whatever berries were available at the time, blueberries, elderberries, you name it. Sometimes people who get sick, they go through this thing where they need orange juice. Well, you got vitamin C there too. You've got a lot of different vitamins. And this isn't the only thing that you can find in that pharmacy that's around you. But like I said, this is not to take the place of a doctor. It is not to be prescribed. And it is not to be used lightly. Whatever you put in here goes everywhere. So you want to make sure that the medicines that you take are appropriate for what you need. I was talking about adopting different plants and adapting to the way they work. One of the things that I love is honeysuckle. You get the honeysuckle when it's open. It's the Japanese honeysuckle that's invasive to this area, which is white and then turns yellow. That is multiviral. If you've got the flu, if you've got a virus, if you've got a bad cold even, it helps to kill the bacteria and the viruses. You dry it. It looks like tobacco when it's dried. You dry it crispy dry. Put it in a jar. In the wintertime when people start getting sick, you take a teaspoon of that, put it in a cup, add some honey, lemon, whatever you want, and make a tea. And then give it to them, and it helps their recovery immensely. I have given it to a lot of people and proved that. And like I said, the flu went away, the virus went away, but that's after a couple days. Herbal medicines are not quick fixes. They will work on whatever problem you have, but you got to give them time to work. And there's very few, if you have the right herbal remedy, there's very few side effects. So it's something that is very clean and something that your body will readily absorb, like I said earlier. So if I need my immune system pumped up, I've got my elderberries. I've got my mint. I've got my vitamin C everything. So I save it, I dry it, and it goes into little jars in a nice dark corner of my cabinets. So when I need it, I can pull it out. And usually my family decimates it during the winter. So I have to start all over in the spring. If there's anything that you feel that you need to delve into further, in which plant identification should be on the top of the list. Don't just go out and start pulling weeds and eating them or using them for medicine. Identify, because that could mean the difference between life and death. I told you about Queen Anne's lace. There is a look-alike that is deadly. So make sure you have the right plant. Do not try anything unless you have someone who is knowledgeable of the plants with you as a safety buffer so that they can identify for you the real plant in person. And you learn it from there. There are books, there are videos, there are everything, but there's nothing going to take the place of you walking outside and touching that plant. Nothing will take the place of that. So when people come to me and they say, oh, what's good for this, that, or the other? I don't want to hear it. If they call me on the phone and say, can you cure my gallstones or whatever? I don't want to hear it. Because if I can't see your eyes and you have not been told what you have, you need to go get that information first and then bring it on. And we'll see if I know something that can help you. I don't know everything. I may be old, but hey, I don't know everything. Nobody does. But we can learn together sometimes. We can go take a walk. we can go see what you've got and see what can be done with it. But I will not tell you something that I do not know. If I can't identify a plant, I'll tell you quick, I do not know what it is. So you need an honest person to go with you. You need someone who will tell you, look, this is what it is and this is what it'll do. But if there's any things that will back you up or make you sick if you do too much, you need that person to tell you that too. So look around and get a person that will help you with that. My recommendation to you and anybody else is, yes, explore what's out there, but do it with someone who is knowledgeable, who can help you, who knows what can go right and what can go wrong, and get all the information, not just this is good for you, try it. You never want to do that. Things that are good for preserving your herbs is number one, do not take an oily herb like mint or anything like that and dehydrate it. Let it naturally dry, because once the heat from the dehydrator hits that, it's going to make the oils dissipate and you've got nothing. So that's no good. You probably won't even get a good flavor because the medicine's in the oil. Rosemary, different herbs and things like that have oils, don't dehydrate them in a machine. Dehydrate them naturally. When you're dehydrating leafy herbs, don't tie the bundle together. Use a rubber band, because if you tie it, they're going to dry, they're going to fall out. But if you have a rubber band, it will constrict as they dry and keep them together. When you're doing dehydrated hard foods, like say you've got roots, you don't want to put them in a dehydrator because most of your roots have sap in them that can be destroyed by the heat. Just leave it naturally dry. It'll eventually dry up, as long as you don't put it in a damp area where it'll get moldy. If you put it in a well-ventilated area, it will, even in your house, if you've got a ceiling fan, it will dry up. The items that you dry, mark them, mark the date, put them in a nice dark place, because sunlight will rob a lot of the constituents from them and you'll end up with nothing. It's just a tea. Sometimes you have flavor, sometimes you won't, but it won't be any benefit to you.
Well, Dawn, thank you so much for all this wealth of information. Could you tell us just a little bit about you? Would you be able to tell us a little bit about maybe you and your family and your tribal affiliation?
I am a Lenape Indian. I was born and raised in Cumberland County, New Jersey. I'm a member of the Lenape Indians of New Jersey. As a child, we used to have to go out into the woods and forage and get medicine, and whatever Granny or Mom said to go get, we got. I used to love it when Granny said go pick blackberries, and she made blackberries and dumplings. But we were brought up, I'm one of 11 children, so we were brought up to help provide some kind of a relief for things to be put on the table. We did hunting, we did fishing, we did a lot of outdoor gathering. In the summertime, we go out in the woods and in August, there would be black cherries, the wild cherries, and we would eat those off the trees. And in the spring, there'd be wild strawberries, and they were the best strawberries ever, and we'd eat them. So that's the way I was brought up, in a place where there was a lot of woods and a lot of foraging.
Hey, Dawn, has there been anyone that has been an influence in your life and in learning about the plants and medicine?
My grandmothers, both of them. Grandma Susie used to send us out to get certain plants for different things. She used to cook with certain plants. Grandma Hannah, she used to tell us what was good for quite a few different things. And if we were sick, she'd take care of us, give us the right medicines and things like that, teas and whatever. She died when I was very young, but my other grandmother, she's hung in there for quite a while. But from the exposure of, hey, I know what to do with that plant, or this is good to eat, I went on and grew, and I wanted to know more and more and more. So I made it a passion in my life to learn more and to teach what I learned to help other people.
So you pretty much have been studying this pretty much all your life, right?
Yeah, when we were little, we had to supplement the food on the table with a lot of things that we had gathered.
I see you have a few more items over there, a few more things that you have brought. Tell us a little bit about some of those.
All right, these are mostly edibles. We talked about the elderberries. This is sumac. Sumac, people know it for being Indian lemonade, but this sumac these are ground sumac berries. This sumac it has a lemony flavor, and it can be used in many, many ways in our cooking. Like I said, we did not eat bland food. We had seasonings, and I'll go through that with a food video. These are called spice berries. They grow in the swampy areas, and the plant itself, like I said earlier, is good for toothaches and things like that. But the Europeans, when they came, they used to import spices. This is allspice. This is one of the expensive spices, which back then it was very expensive, that they would import to make cookies, cakes, spicy items. And we taught them how to use the spice berries instead. These are very aromatic. They have an oil inside, so if they're crushed, the oil will, I don't know if I can even crush one of these guys. Nope, mortar and pestle. But they have an oil inside that permeates your flour or whatever. I like, at the powwows, like people to taste the culture. And since this is indigenous, I grind them up and add them into powdered sugar, so they can put that on fry bread and taste the culture. Same thing with the sumac. It's like a sugary, lemony flavor that they can powder their fry bread with. The spice berries will last a lot longer than the allspice. It tends to dry out and lose its flavor and aroma. So instead of using the expensive stuff, they switched over to the spice berries, gathered them, kept them, because they keep for, once they're green little oval berries, and then they'll turn red, and that's when you pick them. Then you let them dry and they turn brown like this, and that's when you store them and use them.
Well, Dawn, I want to thank you so much for being a part of the Native Power Hour today, and we are so excited to be able to have you as our guest. we look forward to hopefully doing some additional sessions with you. And I want to say Wanishi.
Anishi.
And until we see you again, thank you. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you for having me.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Nanticoke Lenni Lenape Tribal Nations Native Power Hour, Medicinal Plants with Dawn Manyfeathers. The Native Power Hour has been made possible by a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities, Sustaining Humanities through the American Rescue Plan, in partnership with the Association of Tribal Archives, Libraries, and Museums. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and catch our next episode. Again, my name is Linda Little Bright Star Jackson, and I will catch you next time on the Native Power Hour. Wanishi.